Hey, if you're thinking about solo road tripping with your dog, this is what that really looks like. This is Lexi the Golden, and she and I have road tripped over 70,000 miles together. And what I've learned over all those miles of solo road tripping with a dog is that it absolutely changes that solo road trip. It changes how you choose your destinations, it changes how you move through the days, and even the things you're able and willing to do along the way. For me and for Lexi, we wouldn't change a thing. But the key is understanding how traveling with the dog reshapes your planning decisions right from the very start. So here's what you're going to want to think through before you map your route. Let's start with how traveling with the dog reshapes where you can go and affects what you can do when you get there. Your destinations, as well as the stops you make along the way, are going to look a little different. When I travel alone, I can go almost anywhere. When I add Lexi to the mix, I am filtering it through a different lens. Is it dog friendly? Is it walkable? Is there access to trails or open space? And just as important, maybe most important, is what is the temperature and the climate like? So I'm not planning a summer road trip to the deep south of Alabama and Mississippi with a golden retriever who hates heat and humidity. Geography becomes pretty intentional and something I absolutely factor into my planning. It's probably the biggest consideration when I'm deciding my basic route and my direction. Also, national parks. So yes, I would love to explore more deeply in some cases, but a lot of these parks have limited dog access for trails, and some of them you can't hike with the dog anywhere at all. So because I'm choosing to travel with Lexi, instead of hiking on some of these park trails, I just have to drive through. And it's still beautiful and it's still wonderful and it's just a choice I'm making. And instead, I just search outside of the boundaries of the national park. Usually there are national forests and they have tons of much more dog-friendly hiking and sometimes just as beautiful. Great places to stay, hike, all of that. So that shift alone, though, changes the kind of trip that I design when I'm traveling with her. Now, if you're traveling with a little dog, some of this may feel a little bit different. I'm giving you mostly the perspective of someone with a larger dog because that definitely adjusts your trip more than having a small dog. But the bigger shift is still the same. You're planning with two hearts in mind instead of one. I don't think of this as limiting though, because I'd much rather have her with me. That's my choice. And it's not hard to find places that we both can enjoy. And honestly, if there's water involved anywhere at all, she's a happy girl. And if she's happy, then I'm happy. So adjusting to a dog on board doesn't just apply to the destinations that you have. It also shows up in where and why you stop throughout the day in the course of your travels. So when you're traveling by yourself, you can pull over anywhere, wander into a shop, stop at a museum, sit in a cafe, decide to work from a coffee shop for a while, explore maybe an historical site, go for a hike in a national park. With a dog, that spontaneity kind of shifts a bit. So now thinking about a grocery run takes a little bit more forethought. Going out for lunch means that you have to find a place with dog-friendly outdoor seating or plan something that you can bring with you. Even when I spontaneously decide to stop in a new town, I kind of have to scope it out to see if it seems like a good place for us to really wander around together. So I've learned to think a few steps ahead. So if I'm stopping for lunch, then I'm looking for shade or outdoor seating. I might just drive around a little bit more first than just parking. Also, if I'm running into a store, I'm thinking about temperature, I'm thinking about timing, I'm looking for shade, all that type of thing. So if we're going to be in the car a lot on any given day without a planned stop for hiking or wandering, then I look ahead in the morning before I leave and I'll look and see where is there a town with a nice park or a trail or something where we can both stretch our legs sort of in the middle of the day. It's not complicated and it's actually good for both of us. I've actually seen lots of places that I never would have stopped if I didn't have a dog who needed a good sniff walk. But it does mean that you are thinking ahead more intentionally than you would if you were totally and completely by yourself. If that all feels like a lot, then I think you would probably benefit from starting with the Going Solo Quick Start Guide. It walks you through the foundational planning process, and it starts in an unusual place, which is near and dear to my heart, which is recognizing that the joy of a solo road trip is actually rooted in wonder as opposed to a checklist. And both you and your sweet travel companion will benefit. I promise this will help you create a smoother journey for both of you right from the start. So I'll just link it below, and if you think you would benefit from it, check it out. It's totally free. Now let's talk about where you and your pooch are going to stay. When you're traveling completely on your own, where you stay at night can simply just be a place to sleep. But when you travel with your dog, then there is a bit more of an experience that goes with it. So you start looking at accommodations a little differently, not just whether or not they allow dogs, but whether that lodging actually works well for both of you. So it can look a lot of different ways. So it might mean a quick overnight stay in a hotel or a motel. It might mean a cabin that is near trails. It might mean camping somewhere where you can step right into the open space. So I've stayed in plenty of places that weren't extraordinary on paper, but they were surrounded by trails and water and room to roam, and those have ended up being some of our most memorable stays. And I probably would never have chosen them if Lexi wasn't along for the ride, but because I was thinking about what would make it great for both of us, then those became the right choices. Something else to think about is that when you travel with the dog, you're not just booking a place to stay. Sometimes, if you choose well, you're actually giving yourself some flexibility. So what I mean by that is that when I have stayed in dog-friendly cabins or quiet, comfortable spaces, it can be a hotel where she can settle easily, then I have the opportunity to step out for a while, maybe go to dinner or do some shopping and go places where I know she would not be welcome, but I also know she's safe and she's relaxed and quiet. And so it's the best for both of us. Of course, you definitely want to respect the guidelines of wherever you're staying, because not every place allows dogs to be left alone. But when the setup is right, then it creates a little breathing room without sacrificing the experience. And I love that. Traveling completely by yourself means that you can move at whatever pace you want. You can wake up late, you can drive for long stretches, you can stay out longer than planned. But depending on the attitude and the needs of your dog, it definitely does change things a little bit. And typically that means your day is going to need to have a little bit more structure. Of course, that depends on the dog, but mornings are probably going to start with breakfast or a walk. And long driving days end up being broken up a little bit more intentionally for bathroom breaks. And you're paying more attention to the temperature, to the shade, and then how long you've both been in the car. These parameters aren't really restrictive. It just means that you're thinking about the energy and the comfort and the needs of two instead of one. And something interesting happens when you travel that way. You slow down. Sometimes way down. So for example, if we're out walking on a trail, we're going to stop and start a lot. And it causes me, though, to look around more, to notice things that I definitely would have walked right by if I was by myself. This especially applies to water in our case. So Lexi's obsessed with water and with rocks. And our thing is that I will throw stones into the lake or the stream or the creek or whatever hundreds of times. And she'll chase it every time. She doesn't bring him back. She follows the plop. She just loves the chase. And because of that, I pay a lot more attention to stones now. I know it sounds crazy, but the colors, the shapes, the way they look under the water, and they're so beautiful. So at the end of every swim session, she dunks her head under the water and she digs out a souvenir. And so she carries that one rock for the rest of the walk or the hike. And after a while, I just started saving them instead of throwing them out. So now we have jars at home that are labeled by trip that are full of Lexi's collections. It's a little thing, but it's one of the ways that traveling with her has changed how I see the world. And I bet you will find something equally memorable and fun as you travel with your dog. There's one more planning layer that doesn't exist when you are traveling alone, and that's food. Not your food, your dog's food. So when you're on the road, no doubt you've thought through your own food options, especially the snacks, right? But when it comes to feeding your dog, it can be a little bit tricky, especially if you're on a more extensive, lengthy adventure. So for us, for a long time, that meant cooler space, freezer access, and a little more, or should I say a lot more logistical thinking for me, because Lexi eats raw. And that worked, but it definitely added a lot of bulk to my packing and a lot of thought to my planning. And then BJ's Raw created a freeze-dried version of their premium raw food. It has been a massive game changer for me. So it's the same locally sourced, small farm, feed like nature intended kind of approach, but it's in this lightweight pouch. So there's no coolers needed, no freezers needed. You just break off a piece of it, crumble it up, add it to bone broth or water in their bowl, and it's ready. It takes up almost no space. It weighs next to nothing, and then it fits naturally into our travel routine, and it has been such a blessing for traveling with Lexi. She doesn't need her own cooler anymore. And just as important, she absolutely loves it. She's excited every single meal. And I feel good knowing that it's supporting her health while we are out on the road. I'm not sacrificing anything because we're gone for a month or 5 weeks or whatever. So if you are someone who wants to feed raw, or maybe you're just curious about it, this freeze-dried option removes one of the biggest roadblocks to doing it on the road. You can check it out on their website, both the raw and the freeze-dried. And if you want to just give it a try for yourself, I do have a link below that gives you 25% off your order, which is pretty significant. They ship all over the US. For me, it's been one of the simplest and most profound upgrades that we've made to traveling together, because once the food was handled easily, then everything else just seemed to get simpler. Once the practical levels of solo travel with your dog are handled, then you're just free to experience the whole thing differently. Because traveling with your dog, it doesn't just change the logistics. It changes the entire adventure, because now you're going to notice different things, and you're going to stop in different places, and you're going to experience moments that you might have just rushed past on your own. And I think there's something a whole lot more joyful about it as well. I've discovered that traveling with Lexi creates more opportunities for wonder, which is what I am all about on a solo road trip. She notices birds that I would never look up to see. She always pauses, seriously, pauses and sits down to admire a great sunset. I swear. She'll charm a barista into a treat or a pup cup in a heartbeat before they even know what hit them. And if there is a lake nearby, she will absolutely find it. So these are the moments that aren't about logistics, they're experiential. They change how the trip feels, and they absolutely affect the memories that I carry from every solo road tripping experience. I actually go much deeper into this in my book, There's Wonder Around the Bend. Not just the practical side of traveling with a dog, but the good, the hard, and the surprising ways that it shapes the experience. There's a chapter in the end called Dog on Board, and it unpacks all of that in a way that I could never fully do in a single video. Traveling with your dog isn't just about managing the trade-offs. It's about deciding in the end that the trade-offs are totally worth it. And I will choose Lexi every single time. Traveling with a dog will absolutely reshape your solo road trip. It narrows some options, it requires a little bit more thought, but it also brings a lot of companionship, joy, and a front row seat to the childlike wonder that for a dog is just as natural as breathing. For me, it has been worth every adjustment. If you're willing to think through those planning shifts ahead of time, then there's no reason why you and your pup can't build a trip that works beautifully for both of you. If you already travel with your dog, I'd love to hear what changed most for you. What surprised you, what was harder than you expected, and what has made it completely worth it. Lexi and I hope that we will see you on the road.